Hi, my name's Beth. I'm a parent carer to three children. I have a 20-year-old who has Turner syndrome and 26 different health conditions. I have a 12-year-old who is autistic and has anxiety disorder. And I have a 3-year-old who's just your normal kind of mad 3-year-old, really. When I had Rebecca, I was quite young. Well, I was classed as quite young then. I'm still young now. And we had no idea that she was going to have any sort of difficulties. I had a very difficult pregnancy. I was checked every single week because I had hyperemesis and things, but I was never expecting anything but a normal baby, healthy, everything to go as smooth can be. Go in, have a baby, go home. That was it. Fast forward to the day of her delivery, and she was like at 2 hours in labour, one push, and she just blasted into the world. It was instantly sort of obvious that she had something wrong. You could tell she was very, very purple. She had swallowed the meconium. She needed suction. Had very, very low blood sugars. They thought that she was diabetic, and it turned out that I had gestational diabetes and nobody had treated that. Rebecca, one of her conditions is hyperinsulinemic hypoglycemia, which is what alerted them to her being poorly at that point. She was taken straight away to special care. And literally within about an hour, I had a whole row of doctors come in to see me and looking like the world had ended. So my first thought was, oh my God, my baby's died on the way, or something's happened and that's what they're coming to tell me. And they said, we're fairly sure that Rebecca has Turner syndrome. I've never heard of Turner syndrome. My first thought was Down syndrome because that's the only syndrome that I was aware of at the time. And I said, what is that? Is it like Down syndrome? And they were like, well, sort of in a way, it's a chromosomal abnormality. And, it can affect her heart, her kidneys, it can affect her stature and her fertility. And I was just like, right, we've done checks on her heart and everything seems to be, there's no holes or anything like that. So that's fine. It's stable for now. Okay, right. And her kidneys look fine from what we can see. So basically, you're at my bedside an hour after I've delivered, giving me news that actually my baby might be short and infertile. And you're looking like that. And I told them to leave, and my mum was horrified. She was like, be nice, be nice. And I was just like, well, no, actually, because that's not how you deliver news like that. There's a way and a means of sort of communicating. And actually, it probably hasn't improved much over the years, because I remember going in with Lawson, who's 3, and I had a general anaesthetic planned caesarean with Lawson because I have a hole in my spine. And where it is, it would have been unsafe to have just a normal caesarean. And when his sister was born, she got her head stuck because I had a car accident a few years back and it twisted my pelvis. And I have very big babies. They were all like 9 and 10 pounds. So the decision was made, I was going in for that. And it was all planned. Everything was great. I'd had such good care up to that point. And the consultant that came in the morning took one look at my notes, didn't even sort of speak to me, communicate nothing. She took one look, flicked through, and she went, oh, so you've booked a caesarean to fit your childcare? And I was just like, what? No. And she was like, oh, it says here you've had to have it on this date because you need somebody to have your other children. And I went, yeah. And if you had that conversation with me, you would understand that my children need an awful lot more care day to day than what I can't just leave my child with a childminder or with a neighbour while I pop off and have a caesarean. I have to have somebody that's medically trained to have her. I have to plan these things in advance because my children don't cope with change. And I was sitting there thinking, I do not want this woman anywhere near me. And it was just quite horrendous to think that that was only 3 years ago. To see, and even afterwards I really struggled to let it go. I ended up going back to the hospital and going through their counselling and stuff with them, and took it forward because I said, she has to realise the impact that conversation had on me, because I went into that still playing it over in my head. I came out of the caesarean still playing it over in my head, and I've come home and I'm still playing it over in my head. I was like, you cannot get to this day and age and be that ignorant. You just, that there's no room for that now in today's society. And they agreed, and they'd fed it back, and I got a letter of apology and stuff like that where they'd said, really sorry because it shouldn't have happened, and take learnings from it as they do. But I think it just sort of highlights that some people that we meet along the way just sort of don't understand. I always go back to one of my children's head teachers making a comment in a meeting that, you know, in his experience, parents need to learn to grieve for the child they're never going to have. And I was just, no, just no. I was like, I don't care what condition my child has. I don't care what they, you know, they can still achieve. They can still have dreams. They can still do what they want to do. Yes, it might be a bit harder. It might take a bit longer. But if they want to have a dream, you don't have the right to tell me as a parent that I need to grieve that she takes longer to get to that dream. And I think just the society, some in society anyway, not all of it clearly, some I think still don't get that message. You still get, oh, they're autistic, oh, I'm sorry. Why are you sorry? I'm not sorry. I mean, my kid, autism's part of my child and part of who she is, and you know, it's like, yeah, no, I'm okay with that. You know, it's not, yep, she has extra sort of needs and things that we need to put in place to make each day a little bit smoother, but isn't that what you do as a parent anyway? You know, if you have a Maddie, I was a very willful child, my mum would say, and you know, they made adjustments for that by, you know, to avoid me having tantrums and what have you when I was younger. So it's just the same as what you did as a parent anyway. Once you're a parent, you're a parent. It doesn't matter if your child has additional needs. Yeah, you just balance that out and find the way that fits for you as a family to move forward. I think because both of my parents are disabled themselves. My dad had an accident at work. He was a butcher. He had an injury at work where he'd lifted a carcass and it went the wrong way. And I remember him spending months and months and months in hospital and then months recuperating at home. And, you know, even now he still has issues with his back now, sort of thing. And my mum had polio when she was very young. So she has, her foot's got a deformity, so she walks with a limp. So we've always been quite aware of people having differences, if you like. They both run community groups that were disabled and able body groups every sort of Sunday, and play schemes and youth clubs and all that kind of thing. So we were always around just all sorts of different kinds of children all the time. And I remember I had a friend in the Sunday group who, our thing was playing games at the table, and she would always be there first, so I would join her. And it wasn't until we were going on a trip out and her mum had brought her over in the wheelchair, and I had thought she had an accident. I was like, what happened? You know, did you fall? And her mum was like, what do you mean? And I was like, she's in a wheelchair. She was like, she's always in a wheelchair. And I'm like, no. And I remember being really quite upset about that, because I would have noticed that. I would have noticed, and I was like really sort of frustrated, like, no, you're lying, something's happened. And she was like, no, she's always been in a wheelchair. And I think that the earlier you're exposed to differences being the normality, then the earlier it becomes a normality and it's not sort of challenged. In every sort of classroom, you'll have, there's not going to be two children with the same personalities, the same temperament. So you wouldn't, why do we expect as a society them all to have the same sort of abilities and the same educational spots? And it's just, you need the neurodiversity, you need all of the differences to bring together and have, because you can't just have a society full of everybody's the same. Everybody brings something else to the table, and that's surely got to be the point.